Once again, thank you all for joining us. This is Nuance. I'm Mike Scala, and we'll be speaking of the new dynamics in the presidential race, along with some other important topics. Of course, I'm joined, as always, by Jay Carter, also known as Timid, the hip-hop artist in the chair of BLM Tokyo. What's going on, Jay?
Well, now I was thinking about the two albums that just came out, the Common and Pete Rock and the Eminem joint, 'cause I've been listening to those back to back. But now the Slick Rick thing, because of when you said the Here We Go, that
Oh,
came into my mind and reminded me of we actually just kind of saw a moment in history with the new Megan Thee Stallion record, at least a moment in hip hop history.
what was that?
So she's got the song out right now that's called Mamushi. And she's rapping with a Japanese rapper, and he has a verse in Japanese. So this is the first time a rapper from Japan has been on a mainstream hit song in the US. A lot of rappers coming over to the US not speaking English don't find any kind of success at all in the United States. And so this is the first time we've got someone that's on a song on a mainstream hit song like that.
Okay. I actually listened to that Pete Rock and Common album in the car over the weekend, and I enjoyed it. I think Common is really on his wordplay this album more than he's been. I don't know if
Right.
you've noticed that. It seems like every song he's writing a bar, and then he thinks of a double entendre on something he just said in the previous line, and he goes into it for his next bar. And as a writer, that's interesting to observe, right? On the one hand, you might say it's actually easier to write that way once you get into the groove of it, but you also get more props from people thinking that your wordplay is on point, as
Right.
opposed to trying to pull up a rhyme randomly, right? It's like, oh, you see how I connected this with that? So it's kind of interesting to follow, and I think it's nice.
Yeah.
So we're also joined by political consultant Andrey Bystrov, himself a hip hop head. Andre, what's going on? Have you heard any of these new releases?
Um, no,
Okay.
not so much. I heard, just by a couple of the Eminem singles and stuff. I'm not a big fan of Common, I'll be honest with you. I'm a big fan of like Chicago soul and stuff, but I'd rather listen to a Mickey Halstead record than a Common record. But then, I'm in the minority on that one, or Rhymefest or someone like that. But anyways, yeah, no, I have not heard a lot. But I was going to tell Jay that there is an interesting record that came out a couple of years ago of Jid, who is part of, like J. Cole's camp and stuff. He did a record with a couple of Japanese musicians for the new Yakuza game and stuff as like part of a promotional package. So I assume it didn't chart and stuff, but it was a
Right.
kind of a cool joint and stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, Jid, I believe, is also on the new Eminem record.
yeah, I heard about that. There's that track going against Diddy and stuff. I heard snippets of that. I haven't heard the full
Yeah,
record.
I haven't heard the whole record. I was again in the car. Shade 45 obviously is rocking the hell out of the album, so I heard some bits and pieces of it. And yeah, he's got that line about he didn't just say P did he something like that. He didn't leave out the P, did he? When he was spelling Raper raper instead of rapper. And it's like,
Yep.
hold up, he didn't leave out the P, did he? Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
that.
Right, right, right. And
Yeah.
also on that Eminem album, there's a I forget his name. There's a Filipino rapper that features on there in the verse, and he's rapping
That's
in
right. Easy
Tagalog.
Bill, right?
Right, he's rapping in Tagalog on that. Yeah. So
Okay. By the way, real quick, not to go off on too much of a hip hop tangent here, but I've been seeing these posts on Facebook. I don't know, Jay. I know Andre, you're not on Facebook, so you couldn't tell. Jay, you let me know if you've seen these as well. It'll be some random group that I've never heard of, not following, not looking at, like Hip Hop Central or some random name. But I think it's actually overseas, right? It's based in somewhere outside the U.S. But this will keep coming up, different variations of this, where it'll be this group, and it'll be a post about Eminem, but it'll usually be something very clickbaity about such and such. This is Eminem for whatever reason, and then it'll be thousands of people laugh reacting to it. That's the main reaction, right? Thousands of people laughing. Then if you look at the comments, it'll be people fighting with each other, mostly white people saying Eminem is the greatest of all time, and then people saying they never play him in the hood or in the car, and they go back and forth on it. And it's the same thing every single time, to the point where I'm questioning whether this is actually coming from Russia or China to further divide Americans.
I know what you're talking about. I wouldn't question that, but I mean, I don't know. It could be, but I've seen that same argument. Actually, that popped up recently in a Math Hoffa episode, and it was Mech and Hoffa going at each other, that because Hoffa was like, yeah, you know, they don't play Eminem like that in the hood, and Mech just lost. He's like, this is such a stupid argument here. Like, that's not the marker of things or whatever. Like,
by the way, what hood? Because
right, and that's
obviously when I go to South Jamaica, South Side, and again, the 50 Cent connection, okay, but Eminem gets blasted all the damn time when I'm there, right? You go to a cookout in South Jamaica, they're playing Eminem. You go to, listen to the cars, you hear Eminem. Like, so I don't know what to talk about the hood. Maybe the hood outside New York, but from where I'm from, you do hear him in the hood.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's such a stupid argument. It's a very corny argument, and it's really something that's only really popped up like the last 10 years, a little bit more than 10 years, where we've seen this kind of backlash against Eminem all of a sudden, and it's just really corny. Like, oh yeah, he's really not that good. Like, really? Like, come on, like, y'all need to chill out. Stop being stupid. Like,
yeah,
just being ignorant at this point. Dude is crazy. Especially, I love the way he comes off on this new record. I'm loving the Slim Shady vibe, bringing that back. And I think he's done on this album what people have asked for rappers to do, but they haven't done it. So like, people are like, oh, I want Jay-Z to do the reasonable doubt Jay-Z. Where's that at? Where's the first Common or this and that, after they've done so many records, and people are like, oh, I want the old whoever back. So M comes with the old whoever, and he does it just like it was 2002 again. And it's the first time.
You have to let me know offline. I don't want to talk about this too much longer here.
Okay, yeah.
What songs have that vibe? Because the ones I heard sounded very contemporary. It sounded like he was doing the accents from Relapse, and it didn't really sound. And even the more newer stuff, like it sounded like maybe, what was the I'm sorry, I'm mixing up the R ones. What was it? Oh no, Encore was with the accents. But then it was even more recently with like Relapse and Revival, and I didn't really get into those albums, but it seemed like those styles on the new record were more like that than the very early album.
Yeah, I did. I'm talking M after the second album. M, when he was a little bit more in a different groove. Like, I'm not talking about the first M that dropped that had My Name Is on it.
Okay.
I'm talking the one.
That's Slim Shady, though. So people say Slim Shady M, that's the one that they're talking about from 99.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah, he's not really doing that on this.
Right, he's doing Slim Shady, which he hasn't been doing Slim Shady for years.
I don't think that's the style, though. I get the character, right? The whole thing about, like the ego versus the id type deal. Like, I'm going to say whatever I want to say. And I got this guy telling me not to say that. Marshall doesn't like it. Okay, fine. I'm talking about the style of rapping. It doesn't remind me of Slim Shady M. It reminds me of like Relapse, Recovery M.
Yeah, we could talk about that afterwards. So it's
I'd like to point out that while I have not listened to the entire record, I will say for a fact that there's at least one really dope Big Sean verse on there. That's it.
Okay, and there's a guy named Babytron, right, on the same song?
Yes, who also sounds a bit like Big Sean. But Big Sean is fire.
Apparently that's a white dude too.
I think Big Sean definitely murders that track for sure.
Those were good tracks. I felt those were a little bit of a departure from the concept of the album, but I think they were good traps.
That one was, as far as I understand, was not supposed to be on the album. That was supposed to be, I think it was the Babytron, whatever that is, some other project, but he liked it, so he wanted to put it on his album.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have no idea. All I can say is that Big Sean killed that track.
No, it was good.
And like, you know what I'm saying?
It's Toby, right? Toby Maguire got beat by a spider, but me.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the hook or the concept necessarily. I thought that Sean had a. I mean, I'm not a Spider-Man guy. I'm not a Spider-Man guy. You know what I mean?
Bit by a goat.
It's very modern. It's very more that modern
I'll
style.
be honest with you, as like a person who's had goat milk, you know what I mean? Like maybe that's the thing.
But that's what I'm saying, Jay. Like all this stuff that we're talking about, this doesn't remind me of the early stuff. This is more modern style, isn't it?
Well, those tracks, the ones that had features on them, yeah. But I'm talking about like the other everything else. Like what was it? Of course, the Houdini track sounds like it was straight off of one of the old joints. And the rest of them, especially the subject matter and what he's rhyming about. Yeah, it's slim.
Doesn't he have a song like
It's
like
Slim Shady.
same old
I feel
song
like
and dance or new song and dance where something like that where he's
The
doing
Christopher Reeves.
yeah, also doing the accents like he did on Encore, right?
But that one was an old track that was supposed to be on the album in 2004, but he
Was it?
shelved it
Wow.
because Christopher Reed died.
Oh, okay, so that's what he's referring to later on in Guilty Conscience
Yeah.
too. I gotta listen to the whole thing. Again, I haven't listened to the whole album, just bits and pieces of it. So
and that reference somehow made it more relevant 20 years down the line. Anyway,
That that's
the point being here is at what point do we talk about Kamala Harris? Because like
yeah. Let's get into it. Let's get
so
into it.
some
Hey, Kamala, Kamala.
I'd rather talk about Gretchen Whitmer than a new Eminem record, anyways, man, if we're talking about Michigan. But
yeah, so
I'm with it.
again,
Hey,
she's been bit by a goat. Was that the segue here?
no,
Right.
I did listen to the two fucking pardon me. The two hip hop tracks that were dedicated to Gretchen Whitmer and stuff. I recently discovered them. I think that's
Okay. So here's a segue since we were talking about music. What's up with this Brat stuff? Jay, have you seen this? Is that a TikTok thing? Apparently there's a pop star who's got an album called Brat.
British pop star Charlie X.
Yes. Yes. And she tweeted Kamala is Brat. And then
But that's a good thing. It's apparently it's a good thing. It's on TikTok. The kids are doing a dance.
Okay.
I love it.
The Harris campaign made that its logo or its aesthetic, as they say on Twitter. They took the album cover and they put, I think, Harris's name in that same font and background or something. So they're really leaning into this.
Yes, apparently, as the kids call it, I am coconut pilled, which means that I'm a Kamala supporter. So
so I was going to ask you about that. What is up with the coconut thing? Is that the same deal?
So it relates.
You made a speech about coconut trees, right?
Oh no. It's actually it makes sense once you actually like read the actual transcript, right? But anyway, so she made this comment, which the like operatives for the RNC apparently ended up like recording and stuff, and they were going to use it as Oppo research, which leaked. And the thing is, everybody kind of adopted it as a bit of fun, which it was, but also something with a certain amount of messaging behind it in terms of like, you don't exist just, uniquely in a singular moment. You are part of an existing fabric, an existing history of time, and so, there's a certain unaddressed responsibility therein, right?
If you say so. I just know that this has become a meme, and there was even an elected official who endorsed her with a picture of himself climbing a coconut tree.
All I know is I'm down to climb whatever tree they want. I've made my contribution to the Act Blue link. I suggest you guys do as well as any of the listeners here. We've had record number of contributions. I think that she's going to need as many as possible. It's going to also feed into a lot of downstate races where we also need to win. A lot of Senate, it would be nice to pick up some Senate seats. It would be nice to actually potentially win back the House. It would be nice to actually have a bit of a mandate and pacify some of this MAGA extremism and a bit of this, kind of cultish fever that's ever present within the Republican Party.
Okay, so I've got a list of notes here.
Really Jesus Christ, that's a massive list.
Yeah, well, we'll go through some of these, but my first one, and this is a concern, and maybe history will be broken or will change, but off the top of your head, can you tell me when the last time two Democrats were elected back to back without one of them dying in office?
Without one of them dying in office?
Right. Two Democrats, one then the other, back to back, winning elections without a death intervening.
We're gonna go. You're going back easily over 100 years if that happened. Yeah,
more than that.
Yeah,
and they have to be different people.
Yeah. Not Obama twice.
Yeah, right.
I always think about well, I always think about it, but
any ideas? I mean, it goes back.
No. It's going back far. It's
Was I
easily.
mean Eisenhower was a Republican, right?
Yes, yeah, he was.
Yeah. All right. So no.
It
So I
actually,
mean, yes. So look, you know these fun facts. Who was it?
well, so here's the thing. It goes back to the very first Democratic president and his successor, Andrew Jackson,
Andrew
and Martin
Jackson.
Van Buren in 1836. And so that is something to caution against. Obviously, the dynamics may be different here than we've ever seen before, but you don't tend to see two different Democrats get elected without there being a death. And so maybe that's one advantage that Democrats lost by making the switch.
You're right. Right.
Yeah, but again, none of these things, the things that have happened during this general election, have ever happened in the history of
Fair.
politics.
That is
So
fair.
none of these things, right? Also, there's no elected official going back into, I would say, 2008 that would have considered Donald Trump a credible candidate for any major party. It is so phenomenally different than what any sort of polite politics used to be, any sort of nuanced politics. I mean, it's, again, we are seeing.
So, yes. So let's talk about.
Yeah, we're seeing one party run by a very, very angry, fascistic leaning clown, and it's kind of scary.
So let's talk about that. How do you win this election? Obviously, you need Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Looking at the map, it's really hard to envision a path that doesn't include those states. And by the way, even with those states, if things stay the same, or at least the way that they've been, if you just flip Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, when I say flip, I mean according to the latest poll,
I think. Listen, I think.
Hold on a second. I'm just saying, if that's all you do, you land exactly at 270, which
I'm aware.
gives it to the House, which gives it to Trump most likely, right?
Yeah.
So in my humble opinion, I think that there's only upside with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. I think that we've picked up a tremendous amount of momentum. She just raised fundraising records, both in terms of the number of contributors, but also the amount contributed across 24-hour span across every single
Black women.
All right, so here's my question now.
Hold on a second. Wait. You asked me a question. You asked me a question. I'm trying to respond to your question, right?
Did I ask you a question?
You did ask me a question. How do we fight that? Right? I'm literally answering you right now. The momentum is on our side. Switching to Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket was a tremendous choice. Thank Joe Biden for making it finally. I think he should have done it earlier, but I think that if we win, his legacy will be forever buttressed by this step that is both, a decision of a decision that will be later perceived as humble, and also, passing the torch and giving, a historical step forward for this country as well, in terms of like who's going to become a new president.
Yeah, I mean, you can say what you want about.
I think playing off the current momentum that is being built up by Kamala being at the top of the ticket, I think that is how you fight back. I think certain states that potentially previously were not in play, potentially could be in play now, especially with a VP pick.
So I want to get into that. Let's talk about the VP pick, right? So you do need Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Obviously, some people say you pick someone from one of those states. Shapiro, Governor PA, is mentioned a lot. That may not be where she goes.
I think Mark Kelly is a great choice.
So I want to talk about that, because I think that it is going to be either Shapiro or Kelly. Honestly, I think those are the two.
I think it's unlikely to be Shapiro.
Right. Well, they both have pros and cons, right? And so, all right, do you win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin more readily with Kelly than you do with Shapiro?
I don't think necessarily. I think you might be able to sweep additional states. I think that with Kelly, you pick up just enough votes, and with Kamala at the top of the ticket, to maintain that blue wall of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I think, look, Wisconsin is going to be a little bit tougher, and I think we definitely need to spend more work there. But I think that's possible. I also think it's possible for us to, again, win North Carolina and Georgia.
Okay. And so Kelly does have pros in that he's got a great story. He gets along well, apparently, with Kamala. His wife, very compelling, right? Obviously married to Gabby Gifford. Yeah. So that's, at the convention, that would be a very
the gunshot wound. Correct.
Yeah. So that is something. I mean, there are
former astronaut.
Sure. Yeah, no,
will be
yeah,
great
great
for
bio. Right, great bio.
will be great for fundraising. I don't know if it's going to be enough for them to necessarily carry Arizona, but that's going to be enough to potentially carry some, similar states.
You
Though
need,
he
hold on a
does
second.
have
You
great
need,
approvals. He does have great approvals in Arizona, though.
he does. And yes, I
Mm.
agree. You could put Arizona and play, and you want Arizona. I mean, ideally, you want Arizona, you want Georgia, and
Sure, sure. Look,
if you can
and,
get there. But if you can't win, hold on a second though. But if
ideally,
you
you win as
lose,
many
One
states
at
as
a
you
time
can.
here, one at a time,
if
folks.
you lose PA, MI, and WI, right, you're not going to win. And that's what concerns me.
Yes.
Hillary, she needed more black voters in Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and in Detroit.
Hillary is not Kamala Harris.
No, I agree. But hold on a second. What I'm saying is Kamala gives you more of that black vote, perhaps, and we'll get to that in a minute also. But let's assume that she does. I think you don't want to lose blue collar workers and voters in the suburbs.
Yes.
And that may be where someone like a Shapiro can help. Now, he has a downside also, right? The fact that he's Jewish, some people are saying he might be too strong on Israel in this moment, although I believe he favors a two-state solution. So that might be as good as you're going to get on that.
And also, I would like to point out that Kamala has made it a point that she's not going to be there for Netanyahu's speech.
Right.
But
Okay,
her husband is Jewish, and that's going to be brought up as well.
Right. So maybe Kelly diversifies the ticket a little bit more than keeping Shapiro on there. I don't know. Here's a concern of mine, though.
I feel like the voters are very much not concerned with the first gentleman.
I think they're concerned with the connection to Israel, at least in the black community.
And perhaps the progressive.
I'd like to point out that she will definitely be stronger in terms of her address to Netanyahu than the current administration. I feel like that's as much. Look. That's as much as you're probably going to get right now.
So right. And I'm not saying that. I think any president, it's just the United States policy basically to swing from Israel's nuts. And I think any of the presidents are going to do the same thing. No one's going to come out and be like, okay, look, you guys are committing crimes and we're not going to back you anymore on this. No one's going to do that. But to have that connection where her husband is Jewish, and if their VP pick is also,
I think, yeah, listen, man, I think that's a very dangerous thought to have, frankly, in terms of, well, assuming that due to her having a Jewish husband, she might be closer to Israel. It's the fear of, Jewish folks being Zionist spies and kind of that trope that you don't necessarily want to go down.
No, it's about
nor for that fact that, like, if support for Israel can be underneath the umbrella of myriad different opinions. So,
there's also the idea of she's already, I guess, twice a minority in the sense of being a black woman, and if you add a Jewish person to the ticket,
and Asian,
you're going to alienate some of the more traditional, I don't know, waspy type blue collar voter.
And by the way, to make the distinction, you're talking about Shapiro now. We're not. We're making the point that Jim is not on the ticket.
I'm making the point that Shapiro has some negatives.
Right. Look, I think it's unnecessary to do that. I like somebody like Roy Cooper from North Carolina, but I actually think that it's going to be dangerous to put somebody like that on the ticket if you want to win North Carolina, because you probably want the governor there to make sure that the election gets certified in that state.
And that's okay. So I'm glad you said that. That's one of my concerns about Kelly. Do you want to take a Democratic senator out of Arizona, knowing it could fall in the hands of someone like a Carrie Lake or whoever?
Yeah, so look, that is a tremendous downside. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think it took a very long time for the Democratic Party to find somebody like Mark Kelly, who's from the state, who's beloved there already, who has a great fundraising operation, but is moderate enough to be beloved by a lot of independents there, but at the same time votes in a good way, right? So, yeah, I think it's difficult. But at the same time, anything is a potential loss that has to be weighed against the potential gain to the other half of this ticket. And our, overriding concern needs to be beating Donald Trump in November. That is it, right? And
That's
who
that's
gives
the
us the best, who gives us the best play at that, I think, is the person you go with. I think everything needs to be weighed, but at the same time, if Mark Kelly is the person, after they do all the background checks, after they have a conversation and everything else, whether, his family is ready for the kind of insanity that's going to happen across the next 4 months, right? Also, vice president's a difficult position. You know what I mean? Not everybody is willing to kind of be the backseat quarterback, so to speak, or the backseat kind of advisor. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's hard playing number two, right? So again, we'll see how the dynamic works. I really like a Harris Kelly ticket, frankly.
Can
I
you
do.
make the case for that, though? How do you think he is better situated to help you win the Midwest in particular?
So look, I think that he plays. I think he plays them together. They play well in Michigan. I think that with Shapiro's help, and here's one thing that I would like to point out: most of the major stars who are governors in this race that were considered to be the possible replacements for Joe Biden, right? And that's Pritzker, that's Shapiro, that's Cooper, that's Gretchen Whitmer, who we love, Wes Moore. All of these folks immediately endorsed Kamala Harris prior to there being any idea of somebody else potentially challenging her in an open convention, which this technically still is, even though now half the delegates, or now a wide majority of the delegates, have now pledged for to vote for her on the first ballot, right? After calls, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah, that has to be done virtually, though, right? Because they got to get the ballot done for Ohio and other states prior.
No. I mean, no. I mean, look, they can wait on that because they've already figured that out and stuff. Even though the GOP is going to be petty and sue the hell out of this whole thing by saying that they've been running. They created. They're not going to win. They're going to do some petty nonsense as they always.
I'm saying that the Democrats are not going to wait until their convention to officially make Kamala the nominee.
I disagree with that. I think that would be a bad move, perception-wise, again, because there is more growing necessity to do it for Joe Biden. I think it's
they're going to have a virtual convention. They have to get the Ohio ballot.
I disagree. No, I disagree. They can
come out and
hold on a second. They already passed the law and stuff that takes place, that takes effect. I understand it's September 1st, but at the same time, and that Ohio Republicans.
There are other states also, though. It's like, wasn't it like 23 states or something?
No. It is only an issue. It's only an issue of Ohio and stuff. But at the same, yes, it is.
Ohio was the first one. Ohio was an August 7th deadline. There are other states that are coming up before August 23rd, and 19th, whatever the convention is.
And the convention is on August 9th, bro.
19th to the 23rd, bro.
All right, yeah, man. I mean, look, it's fine. It'll be fine. I think it's better to do it at the convention. If they can do it at the convention, rather than a virtual roll call and stuff, I think that would be.
I don't think that's feasible. And that's why also, by the way, we talked about last week, or whenever we discussed this last, that if Biden were to drop out, he would have to do it very soon, not right up in, next to the convention, for this very reason, that you have to have time to get on the ballot in all these states. That's why it happened so quickly.
Right. Look, but again, it's the Democratic Party. They choose their nominee. If it becomes a legal issue.
But state law is still state law, and the ballots need to be printed.
I'm aware.
So, all right. Well,
again, Ohio, as I said, is the only issue, but they passed a law there that takes technically effect in September.
It isn't just Ohio.
That's right.
You have to look at this. It's not just Ohio. There's a lot of states that have a deadline prior to the convention.
We'll have that conversation. I believe you are incorrect, sir.
No, it's August 7th.
Pistols at dawn.
I believe you're incorrect. I feel like I am right about all things.
Somebody fact check this for us. But anyway, I still don't see the case for why Kelly. We talked about Shapiro does have his downsides, but does Kelly really help bring you the Midwestern states? Look,
man, he's a charismatic, older, like middle-aged white man and stuff from Arizona. He's going to do quite well and stuff to like knock on the suburban voters and stuff and make a dent within the both the college-educated white male population as well as the uneducated white male population, where Trump is handily defeating any Democratic opponent that he would be facing. That's the real draw of it and stuff. You need to win back enough votes from like white voters, apparently.
Well, you also need to win more black voters than the polls show you're currently getting. Now, we can talk about whether we believe this or if this is going to move, but the CBS poll that was done recently showed Harris with only 76% of black voters, which is about the same level that Biden was at. Now, for her to win, really, she would want that number to be about 90%. Now, I do think as energy continues to build around her, you will see that number move up, but it is still a cause for concern that she's only at 76% of black support right now, according to the polls, at least.
She's never had high black support, even in her runs prior to this, because of the fears around her record in California as a DA and locking up people and whatnot, which some of it is misinformation and just internet misinformation that the numbers aren't really what the stuff has been spread around. So she's going to have that trouble with the black community. However, we're seeing right now that it's black community is getting fired up. We
Right.
just saw there was a call of 44,000 black women on a Zoom call, and they raised like over $80 million in 24 hours for Kamala.
Yeah.
Then yesterday there was a live broadcast headed by Roland Martin for black men to get on board, and when I checked in on it, there was over 15,000 people, but I think, and the final count was somewhere around 50,000, and they did about 1 million in like about an hour or two. So I don't know what the final thing came out. It was a 4-hour thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So
A friend of mine sent me something about that. 1.6 million viewers total, over 1 million raised.
right. So there
Yeah.
seems to be a big push of getting behind it. I think listen, what Andre said, like the goal here is to win this seat. So Trump Project 2025, doesn't come into fruition. People need to understand that assignment. The Democrats can't get locked into this perfectionist bias that they have about candidates, about this small issue here, that small issue here. We got to look at the big picture and see what's
Yeah.
going on. And Kamala is the presumptive nominee, and so people need to get behind that 150%. Or
Right.
the alternative is what's waiting for us.
Right.
And look, and by the way, look, I'm far more excited about Kamala Harris than I was about Joe Biden. I'd like to very much underscore that. I think that this is a good decision.
Yeah, so the enthusiasm gap may be closing, and that is what you needed because Democrats were very low on enthusiasm previously.
Yes.
And so you are getting that shot in the arm. A couple points, I think, on what Jay just said. Number one, I think the needle will move, and it's maybe already moving. I went back and I watched the first debate from the 2008 cycle with Hillary and Obama, right? And obviously, this is still in 2007, before Obama was really well known nationally. And if you look at the debate that happened in South Carolina with the predominantly black audience, they were solidly behind Hillary at the time, right? Obama
Right.
was like this weird new professorial dude, didn't think he had a chance of winning, and he was kind of looked at almost like a fringe candidate. But
Yeah.
Hillary was the favorite, right? And it took time, I think, for Obama to show that he had a chance, right? He had to build that momentum up. And once he started doing that, you did start to see more and more black voters get on board with it. And obviously, he was hitting that 90% marker that you need. So I think you can see something similar with Kamala. Before she got in the race, the national polls generally would show her down by a few points to Trump, but now you're seeing she's getting ahead a little bit. So things are shifting. Whether it's just a honeymoon period or not remains to be seen, but you are seeing movement there. The other thing I wanted to mention about the 76% black support now, Jay said that maybe this has something to do with her not being popular given her history as a prosecutor. But do you think that that would result in 24% of people backing Trump over her if they think that she's too harsh on crime?
So no, look, first off, I think that there's going to be a bit of a shift as well because of who the opponent is, right? She's specifically facing a felon who has been found liable for sexual assault, like, you know what I mean? Like, who's had a fake school, that's disadvantaged black communities, brown communities for decades as a slumlord in New York State. You know what I mean? Like, I think that because of the villain on the opposite side, I think that a majority of the communities that we are going to need in order to win this election, including hopefully every voter in this country, they're going to want specifically a prosecutor running against them. Now, whether that might be at odds with one's individual beliefs. Sometimes you do want a prosecutor there when they have a criminal that they're facing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm just questioning if the 76% to 24% is really about her history as a prosecutor. I mean, with
I
that
think
many
it's going to
people
shift.
going to Trump, if they think that Kamala was too hard.
I think it's going to shift.
No,
No, but
I
I'm saying
think
I'm questioning whether that's the reason it's like that in the first place. It's also, by the way,
no.
very similar to Biden's numbers.
Right. I don't think that's in the first place. I think personally, and this is opinion, of course, that 25% is probably largely made up of black men that are just cooning, and I'll say it. You might not
Wow.
want to say it, but um, black women seem to be a little bit stronger in knowing and understanding the assignment here, and so uh, that's where this is gonna have to be led from, if at least the black community getting on board with Kamala. And so I think it's a lot of people are not hearing about or caring about Trump's felonies, or not listening or caring about what happened in the 70s or about the Central Park Five stuff. Um, I hear more of them talking about Kamala, what she did in the prosecutions, and locking up brothers in California, than I hear about Trump not letting people live in his buildings. And so that is going to be an issue. But if the movement that we're seeing this last couple of days is any indication, there's potential to definitely overcome whatever space that she's had.
Right. And also could be a matter of turnout, right? If people
And
don't like her, they might not be as excited to come vote at all.
right, that's one of the things. The thing, instead of going to Trump, they just might be like, well, we're not just going to vote.
Yeah.
But there is black women seem to be Trump's kryptonite here. I mean, think about who's been taking him down, right? New York, that was a black woman there, the Attorney General.
Oh, Tish
Georgia,
James. Also,
Fannie
okay.
Willis, the district judge, Tanya, what's her name, Chutkin or something like that. Black women are the ones taking him to getting him somewhat accountable. So maybe Harris might be the one to do it. It would be lovely for him to do it because he would just be in his penthouse somewhere cursing all kinds of N-words, and it would make me giggle to no end. But so we'll see. Hopefully she does pull it off.
Yeah.
So, all right. Speaking of polls, I sent this to you before, Andre. This is a pattern that I've been seeing, and I really don't trust it. I mentioned this also last week on here. The Quinnipiac poll that came out, looks like July 21st, so 2 days ago, shows with voters between the ages of 18 and 34, Trump would have 58% to Harris's 39%. And this is not a new phenomenon. I saw this with the Biden polls as well. And so when you see these polls that show Trump ahead by a couple points, they seem to have him winning the youth vote outright, this time by 19 points. That just doesn't seem like that's the reality of the situation.
I don't think that that's correct.
Yeah, I think you kind of pointed out some of that inconsistency last week when we talked
Yeah.
about that. If you're doing a phone poll, sees the youth, a lot of the youth aren't even answering their phones, and so it depends on who's
I mean,
answering.
first off, it's likely to be a text poll, and you know what I mean. Again, the youth Trump crowd that is listening to like awful
They're going to respond
like
more.
MAGA rap and stuff. You know what I mean? They're gonna like respond
Right,
to
because
every
they
text
are
message.
right. Let's be clear, they are getting responses from young voters, but the question is, I guess, which ones?
Right. Yeah. So,
I think, look, I think that your natural Biden supporters who are in that age group are probably going to be far more dubious to the standard manner of polling. That's it, and they're going to be less responsive.
I would assume, personally, I would assume that the young voters would be more for Harris than for Trump,
Right,
just
and again,
because.
I also
Democrats
think they're going to
won
be
that
better,
vote by
and,
30 points in 2022.
Right.
and even
30
more
points.
so, and don't forget, even more so for Harris than Biden as well. By the way,
Right,
Right. I mean, because listen, she's got a couple of those things, especially, the youth in that generation are very progressive. They're very idealistic. And she is a woman. She's a black woman. She's an Asian woman. She would be the first woman president. She was first woman vice president. Like, these tick a lot of boxes, a lot of inspirational boxes with them. So, I would imagine that they'd be more for her than
right. And so I'm
Biden or Trump.
questioning Yeah, I'm questioning whether the polling methods have to be adjusted here or the results need to
Right.
be recalibrated here to better account for that because I'm distrusting of a poll that has Trump winning. And then when you break it down, it shows, oh, yeah, he's 19 points up of the youth vote. So something's not right there.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if you necessarily want to start doing TikTok polling.
No, but I think you want to more accurately measure the mood of the electorate. I don't think this is hitting it.
Right.
I
We
mean,
can
look,
just TikTok polling or not? Yeah.
you might just have to spend better money on outreach to young voters as the Democratic Party.
So
Crazy
you
idea.
so you believe that that these voters are actually backing Trump more than they're backing Harris?
No, I
No.
think that young voters carried Joe Biden over the threshold in a lot of areas in 2020 because they were sold on the idea of the fall of democracy. But don't forget, you're going to have some younger voters who were not even able to vote during the time that Donald Trump was president.
Mhm.
So, again, better outreach for Democrats. It would be good
Yeah,
listening to the things that young voters want. It would be nice to listen more, to find out what issues affect them. And by the way, it's not the issues that you would think affect
right.
them. You know what I mean? It's not college loans. Interestingly enough, it's not,
No.
you know what I mean? It's also, by the way, not Palestine,
Right.
Israel. It's
Right.
not. It's
Right.
housing. It's, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's being able to afford food when they go out to the grocery store.
It's identity.
It's all fairly standard things, but again, the approach has to potentially be different.
Yeah, and to your point, Andre, the numbers also do show, and this is probably no surprise to anyone, but if you look at likelihood of voting by demographic, the over 65 group is the most likely. They tell pollsters they're definitely going to vote at a
Mhm.
much higher clip, right? The young
Right.
voters, I think it's maybe about 70-ish% for young voters, which is okay. So at least it's the majority of them. But when you go over 65, you're talking about 90% of them say they're going to vote.
Right.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, you know this as well that during this election, where millennials, us, are likely to hit the plurality of the voting pool. So
Well, I
again,
think
that's also
Right, but not all millennials are under 35. I mean, I'm
no,
41.
no, 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 no. No, I mean, neither am I. I mean, that's not my point. My point being is again, it's younger folks. It's folks like us. Again, they're going to be like a lot of times deciding these coming elections, but it's also going to be folks that are even younger than us and generations younger. You know,
right.
we have to remember that, and the approach has to be different.
I think the idea, what we need to do here is I've got the plan, and this is how we're going to do it. Andre, I want you to get Kamala's people on the phone. Mike, you and I, we're going to get busy and write a verse to Kendrick's Not Like Us for Kamala to rap on TikTok.
Okay.
And there it is. That's the
That's
push.
it. That's it.
That's going to go viral. She's going to get a lot of love from the younger generation. It's on there.
I believe it.
All right.
So
So, not a bad idea. Let's let's talk about this notion that Harris can potentially spend the Biden money. We talked about how she's raised what 86 million in the first couple of days or whatever.
right.
Probably going to hit 100 million very soon. But there's also the Biden money that was raised, and there were many people saying that because the committee was set up with both of their names on it, she would be the only replacement who would be able to spend his money. That, of course, is being challenged. I think it was the head of the RNC or somebody was saying, listen, this was set up with Biden as president, Kamala as vice president, and so she can't just spend his money. Listen, if that goes to the Supreme Court, I don't have faith in them allowing that money to be spent. So, do
And
you
by the
think
time it gets
that's,
there, it could be too late
yeah,
anyway.
yeah? So, do
It'll
you
be
think
fine.
that that's even feasible?
It'll be fine.
Think so?
Yep.
Well, it may be fine in terms of her being able to raise money on her own, as we're saying, but in terms
Hey,
of
by the
access,
way,
Biden,
Mike, you know who said that, by the way? You're gonna get a kick out of this. Mark
who
Elias.
Elias said what, that they cannot do it
Mark
or they can
Elias,
do it?
that the money's gonna be fine.
Oh, that's going to be fine. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see people on the Democratic side saying this often that it'll be able to be spent. I think even Jerry Goldfeder might have said that. But you do have Republicans saying that they're going to sue over this. It is unprecedented. Let's be fair about this. This isn't something that you usually see, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know if it's as easy as some Democrats are saying. Oh, yeah, sure. It was set up in both of the names. She can just spend it. She was the VP. People were giving money for the Biden Harris ticket.
Right.
So I don't know if that will be allowed. But she is raising. I mean, maybe this is not going to matter in the end. I don't know, because she's raising money at I think at a rate much faster than people expected, right? Because I think we were saying on here previously, it's going to be very hard for anyone to raise that kind of money that quickly. But she does seem to have that excitement behind her that wasn't anticipated, and she is raising money quickly.
Right, and they said I believe it was said that the stash of money that the Biden-Harris ticket had was about 100 million, and she's already done what you said, 86 million in like a week. So even if she
No,
can't
in a
access
day.
that money,
In one day.
Yeah, in a day.
right,
In
one, I'm
one day.
sorry, you're correct, in one day. So if she's already almost there,
Like I
so
said,
even
it would be
if she
fine.
can't, she'll be fine on the fundraising front, it looks like. But Republicans are definitely going to try to block it as much as possible. I mean, they're going to come at her with everything. There was already a representative from Tennessee who already filed articles of impeachment against her, which is ridiculous.
Against her or against Biden?
Against her.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Right. And
there's
now they're also saying that the 25th Amendment should be invoked and Biden should be forced
Yeah,
out of
I heard
office. And
about
so
that.
if he
yeah,
can't
they're trying
run
to
and
do
he
that
can't
too.
serve, that is an interesting electoral strategy. They're obviously not making that in good faith, not doing it for the good of the
No,
country. They're
no.
saying that they would rather, I guess, run against an incumbent president because then they can say the administration is terrible in all these different ways. I think that's what they're thinking, that they want her to be in office. I think that could backfire on her, by the way, if that did succeed, which I don't think it will. If she did take over prior to the election, then
No,
she
look,
gets a
first
chance to
off,
be presidential.
I don't even want to speculate on that because it will never happen. It genuinely will never happen. I
Right.
mean, although
You mean,
to be
wait,
fair,
wait,
I can't
never
yeah,
like a presidential
yes,
candidate for a party
yes.
having
Fair.
34 felonies and being a sexual assault.
And then surviving an assassination attempt? Yes. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. I should absolutely be quiet. You are absolutely correct. I don't want to will more interesting things like happening into existence. And again, I say interesting but awful things because look, I don't think that Joe Biden should
Laugh,
step down.
laughs and Howard
Be able
Dean.
to. Yeah, I think he needs to be there for the end of his term. I think that he would
Yeah,
be would have a terrific legacy going out as president
Yeah.
if this all is done in a very correct, coordinated,
Right.
well thought
Right.
out manner.
And so
Let's hope very peaceful, very
right.
yeah.
very polite, very well curated.
So I am now kicking myself for not having run for delegate, because we were talking about doing that, running for delegate to the DNC. And wow, what a moment this would be to be one of those delegates to vote on the new nominee. Crazy, crazy times.
Yeah.
My concern now, honestly, this might have been the thing that was keeping Biden alive. Hate to say it, but he may deteriorate a lot quicker now that he's out of the game. You know what I
A lot
mean?
of that happens to a lot of people when they are old. Once they retire, they quickly go down because they
Right.
lose whatever they were
So
living for, so to speak.
he is maintaining being the president right now. I'm assuming he's also going to probably maintain a fairly similar campaign schedule because again, he had a much smaller campaign schedule
Yeah.
than prior candidates
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. And
Right.
so I think he's going to probably maintain that. He's going to go to key events to be the individual that, again, introduces Kamala Harris. And basically, it's going to be a consistent and constant introduction. We're also going to have Obama there. We're going to have a lot of, Democratic Party leaders. We're going to have a lot of the young blood there as well, depending on where these events are going to take place. And so, yeah, I still think that he's going to maintain a fairly hectic for his age campaign schedule on behalf of Kamala Harris,
Did
just to
you
make sure that
see?
this is continued on.
Did you see or hear his call into Harris campaign headquarters? He
I did.
sounded
That was great. That was great.
he sounded phenomenal. I'm thinking, man, why can he always sound like this? I guess he got a lot of pressure off of him now.
That's right. There you go.
He's relieved that burden. It's
Yeah.
I mean, look, he might have hung out with some grandkids and said, "Hey, look, man, if this is retirement, it's not that bad." You know what I mean? And then,
yeah, sure. I
so
mean, he's a family man. He's he'll have that time and whatnot. My thing, I've seen people talk about, and I get your opinions on this. I've seen people talk about like, okay, well, Biden, since he's dropped out, he is now officially a lame duck. He doesn't have a campaign to win for himself anymore, and he's got broad immunity now. Like, is he going to let his nuts hang for these last couple of months and get some stuff done, just push through some things?
Can I just say something? I think we had this discussion before. This idea of broad immunity gets so overplayed
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
Immunity from criminal prosecution, okay, but that you also see the Supreme Court shrinking what the president is able to do, according to them. And so,
Right.
unless you're saying you want to go out and commit crimes, he really doesn't have a whole lot of immunity. He doesn't have a lot of free reign to do anything.
Well, do you think he's going to start upping his talk a little bit now that he doesn't have, because, like even presidents in that second term, the talk shifts a little bit because they don't have an election to win
Oh
anymore.
yeah,
They can be a little bit more aggressive. They can be a little.
right,
Yeah.
but also right, so it can go both ways. Yeah, he can feel more free, be less restrained, but also I think you see the legislature taking a president a little less seriously when they're lame duck.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a feeling that there might be, and again, this is also, it really will depend on how we're doing in terms of the campaign polling. But if the Biden team is daring, they might start putting in some judicial reforms.
Mm.
That's what
We're talking about.
that's what a lot of the aides have been hinting at prior to his news of stepping down from the campaign, which has now taken the oxygen entirely out of the room.
Right.
But that was the original gossip, right? That they're going to start looking into. I don't necessarily know if that means the at least talks of expanding the Supreme Court, if that means some sort of additional legislative oversights. Again, I don't know what necessarily that entails because they were fairly vague about it. And again, this was them hinting at things. But look, if you're talking about that, that would be quite daring. I think that would be a very.
He is going to address the nation tomorrow, which is Wednesday at 8 p.m. from the Oval Office. And so we'll see. I think he intends to outline some of his plans for the remainder of his term. Hopefully he does propose something daring and kind of lean into this idea that now he doesn't have to worry. He doesn't have the burden of reelection on him. And so he can just focus on living out his legacy, right? Making sure he leaves office proud of what he's able to accomplish.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll
see. He has done a lot so far. And so this could be a good opportunity. This is a grim question. I just wrote this down because, again, I was concerned about his health. I think he even made the point that when he was running and he had this fire in him to be reelected, his doctor said that was what was keeping him going above all else. Who do you think dies first now, Carter or Biden?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Jesus, dude. Jesus.
Grim question, but one worth considering because Carden seems like an Iron Man.
Is this Slim Mikey?
What about look, man, I said this before and I know this doesn't sound positive in any way, but I don't want Trump to ever be assassinated because I don't want him to be martyred because I don't want anybody to publicly see a man get executed. But at the same time, I would be fine with him having a heart attack, wearing an orange jumpsuit, serving out a prison sentence.
I'm with he should be incarcerated. I mean, and that's just for his, the things he's done. He should be held accountable for.
Correct.
Definitely if any of us had
through
done
the justice system, 100%. I'd rather not speculate on the death of two presidents that I think have done a spectacular job in the White House rather than the one that nearly brought the entire republic to its knees.
And is planning on doing that in his second term if he's able to. So I think he definitely belongs behind bars. There's a lot of cases for it. I mean, even though it was the civil case with the sexual assault, he had to pay 80+ million on that. The 34 felonies there. There's also the stealing of the secret documents. That case was thrown out by one of his judges, but the things that he's committed and he's done publicly that we saw, even, president time, not counting anything he did before, he deserves to be incarcerated and held accountable for it.
The chance now with the Harris rallies are lock him up, ironically, and we will see in September, as of now, this could change based on...
That's my question.
As of now, right, the sentencing for the New York case is scheduled to occur in September. If we do see a jail sentence imposed, now, in all likelihood...
Mike, you're the one that thought that there was going to be a jail sentence, right? I don't think there will be one. I think that it's fully within the boundaries of, existing precedent. As little as there is for this, but, yeah. with
Yeah,
similar crimes.
I'm not gonna say that I'm extremely confident there will be one. I think that it is somewhat likely. However, I also believe that even if his sentence is imposed of time behind bars,
Sure.
they will allow him to exhaust the appeals process before he has to serve any time, which means that he
Of
would
course.
not be in jail
Of
prior
course.
to the election, regardless of what happens. But I do think that there is maybe a bigger chance than some would want to say that the judge will order a sentence, even if it's I don't know 4 to 6 months. I think that is somewhat likely, and I think we're going to see that in September. And I do think that that can make a difference in the votes. I mean, even if it sways a couple points, we know that 2 or 3 points in either direction is huge, given how
Yeah.
close these races are.
Look, I think it's highly unlikely. I would love for what you say to be true.
I want more than 6 months.
Huh?
I want more than 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, but
Well,
I mean, Jay,
what's
do
likely
you,
here?
do
I
you, do
mean,
you think? Yeah, do you think? What do you think? Who do you think is right?
I don't think he's going to serve a day.
No, I'm not saying whether he serves time. Do you think he's going to actually have a administrative sentence imposed?
do you think that the judge in September is going to say that this comes
Is
with?
going to give him jail time? Yeah,
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
yeah. Neither do I.
I just don't have that faith in the court system and what we've seen him skate through thus far.
Here's the thing,
He
though.
was
I
not wrong
agree.
when he said I could shoot somebody
Right.
in the middle of the street in Madison Avenue or whatever it was and not be held accountable. We've seen this basically type of scenario playing out for him. Like
He has shot himself in the foot numerous times. Now he's literally dodging bullets, and yeah, I
I
get
mean,
it.
look,
I get it.
I
But here's the thing: this judge is known to be on the tougher side when it comes to sentencing. He's been held in contempt of court 10 times. He's got other felonies going. Would he call the judge's family demons or something like that? He attacked the
right.
witnesses, the jurors. I mean,
but he never served a single day in jail for contempt of court, did he?
No,
but now is the
and
time when the judge.
there were 10, what was it, 10 counts of
Right, that's what I'm saying. Doesn't that play into the sentencing decision now?
I mean, look, it should, but again, I don't think it will. I'm with Jay on this. I think while like everything you're saying is correct, right?
Mhm.
And within the I guess the penal statutes and stuff, it would make sense for him to get, you know, potentially as much as a year for every felony offense. You can do this, in different ways and stuff.
Certainly.
You could also just potentially just say 13 months and like that's enough for all of your sentences. But then again, I don't think that that's likely to happen. I do not. I don't even think a lower sentence, the 4 to 6 months that you were saying, is likely to happen. I think because, again, this is such a unique case due to so many different elements. I highly doubt that any judge is going to be able to withstand the incredible pressure to not sentence a former president for this particular
incredible pressure for him to sentence the president, though. I think
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I think it's far more likely on the more severe charges that he's now substantially delayed, and also has been substantially delayed by the Merrick Garland.
I mean, there is precedent for this, right?
I think you should.
Yes, there is.
Not this.
I think we all agree that he should.
Not this exact thing. No, not this exact thing.
Similar type cases, you have seen jail time imposed.
Correct.
And I don't know. I just look. I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree with you, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was no time issued here. But I would put it at maybe 55 to 45 that sometime will be ordered, and then he goes do the appeals, and then we see what happens coming out of it. If he is reelected in November, I don't think he serves a day behind bars.
No, I think I agree with Andre. I don't think it's going to happen. I think I just don't have that faith in the court system and the justice being carried out the way that it should.
And what do you think is going to happen? I mean, if the decision comes out, how do you envision that decision coming out by that judge? Okay, so I've thought about this, and I think the appropriate penalty here is a slap on the wrist. You think he's going to put that in his decision?
No. He's not going to put it in those terms, but I think that what he's going to impose is he's going to castigate him a bit in his decision, and then he's going to impose a sentence of what's it called?
Probation.
Of probation, yeah.
Yeah, some kind of probation. And Either way, here's the thing is either way, Trump is going to spin it towards his advantage. If he does get jail time, it's going to be, I'm being persecuted to his fans. They're going to eat that up. If he doesn't get jail time, it's like, see, I wasn't doing anything wrong and they couldn't catch me on it, and his fans are going to eat that up. He's going to
I mean,
spin it.
look, yeah, I mean, look, yeah. Regardless, after the sentencing comes out, it's going to be a major fundraising push by the RNC and by the
Yeah.
Trump campaign as a whole. Of course, having said that, look, I also think that Mike is right that whatever the sentence is, a sentence is a sentence for a felony conviction, and whatever it comes out to be, hopefully it translates to the Dems and the top ticket polling better. You
I
know what I
just
mean?
don't,
I hope
I
it
don't
buys us
see it.
some votes, a couple of
I don't
thousand
see it.
here and there, man.
I don't see it. The 34 felony convictions came out. He's still the front runner. He's still kicking
Well,
butt.
look. Things
Like
were
I don't.
things were a little bit different in terms of who the top of the ticket was at that time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And also, by the way, what
Let us
if,
build momentum. Let's not be cynical here. Let us
yeah,
build momentum,
and
man.
also,
I'm
what if,
coconut pilled, man. I'm coconut
hold on a
pilled. Let's
second,
go.
what if he wasn't
Howard Dean
convicted?
was like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Nah, dude,
Yeah,
that's too much. You get out of the race."
you
Hey,
can't,
hey, hey,
hold on
hey,
a second,
hey,
hold on a second.
hey,
You
hey.
can't reduce it to just
Howard
because
Dean would
there's
look
been.
normal in today's
Right.
environment. Bro.
But
Are you
let me
kidding
say
me?
this: you can't reduce this to just because there have been convictions and he still remained popular. That means that it had no effect on the minds of the voters. I mean, if he weren't convicted, he might have had a much bigger lead. If January 6th didn't have any of these things didn't happen, right? It's a close race,
That's
but
even scarier.
If he could speak, if he was better educated, if he wasn't a
yeah,
fascist,
that's what I'm
you know
saying.
what I mean?
All these factors play
So yeah,
into the mood and the minds of the electorate and the voters, right? So
yeah.
let's not say they have no effect.
I don't see it. I just don't. I don't see it.
I mean, Bill O'Reilly, not that we agree with him, but he said that if January 6th didn't happen, Trump would be winning by a lot more. And he might be right about that.
And that's a scary thought. Um, you know, that's a scary thought. I mean, he did win previously, so
All
you
right.
know,
It's also
by
scary.
all counts of everything that we know about so-called polite politics, he should not have ever won an office. He should not be the front runner of the ticket. He should not be any sort of pick by a large majority of people. And but here we are.
I would also point out that it's a scary thought that somebody's still giving Bill O'Reilly a platform to say anything about anything in contemporary politics, and
People were
that's by
upset
the way,
with
and that was John Stewart. I love John Stewart, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
people were
We had
upset
him
with
on his,
Stewart over
yeah,
I skipped that interview, man. I watched his
like the
live
podcast.
debate back in the day and stuff, but now
Yeah.
whatever. Bill O'Reilly has like a tiny little show somewhere on like
Online, right? They say he
the
lost 1,000 subscribers when he attacked Trump for January 6th. So,
but
Yeah, I mean, my point being is I don't care and stuff. His audience is minimal, so like there's no real need to put him on like broadcast air anymore and stuff. And that.
that's not what I'm saying. Though. I'm just saying all these factors play a
right.
role. Let's not say they have no meaning.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
all right. So we could probably move on. And we can talk about this forever, but we don't have all night. And I did want to talk about the poll from last week, and we want to put out a poll for this week as well. So why don't we get to that real quick, Jay? What was the poll from last week?
Yeah, poll from last week was should New York's equal rights guarantees include age, gender expression, and pregnancy outcomes because of the uh amendment that's going to be on the ballot in November is going to
Mm-hmm.
expand these protections significantly. So the results here were that 86% said yes, 14% said no.
Okay.
Um, Now, there wasn't a lot of commentary on this, nowhere near what usual. Wasn't a lot of participation in this poll as usual either, because we kind of had a little bit of a backlash, so to speak.
You had a backlash. What was that?
From the previous poll.
Really?
The previous poll about do you believe New York City landlords should be required to buy the sealable garbage bins?
Okay. What was the
So,
backlash?
well, so when I put these polls up on there, I give a little write-up about what it is so they know what we're talking about, and then I put a link to the podcast where the discussion came from, and then I give some additional links to news sources that talk about this issue. Um, the name of our podcast in that sense was about how we were talking about the process would be if Biden were to step down, how that would take place. And so that was the name of the episode. And so people looked at it as spam because they're like, well, you're talking about garbage cans. Why is this big thing here talking about Biden being replaced? We need to back Biden. And so people went into a tangent on that. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is about. This conversation took place during this total podcast. It's like an hour and a half long. And that's where this comes from. And they're like, oh, this is a bait and switch. This is people are trying to get Biden to step down. And there was this
You got to
freak.
put time codes. You got to put time codes.
It was just, yeah, they went their real tangent. And so in this one, so in the last one, we had like, over 100 plus people in the poll and 60 plus comments back and forth. And in this one, there was like only 2 comments. And so, yeah, so I think we
That's
even
all
got
right.
a warning report. Someone reported it to like Daily Kos and like what is wrong with you people? Like you're acting like the MAGA people on the other side. Like you
Well,
can't have
listen,
a nuanced conversation or
yeah.
understand
There's
things.
just a lot of cynicism out there right now, right? And people are
Yeah.
skeptical. Earlier on, I was like, oh, all these M&M discussions, Russian, Chinese oriented,
Right,
propaganda.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, what I mean? People start thinking that even if it may not be true, it's, you kind of have to expect that in this climate.
Yeah, and I'm like, look, we both this, and they're like, well, why did you pick? First of all, they didn't think it was our podcast. They were like, well, why did you pick this random one? This must be deliberate. You picked this random one that talks about Biden stepping down. You could have picked any other random thing. Like, this is our podcast. This was our discussion. That's why it's on there. And
Mhm.
we both support Biden being on the ticket. What are you talking about? Chill out. Like, so I think that's what not backlash, I guess backlash, but why the numbers on this
Yeah,
poll
well, that's all
less
right.
than
And,
previous.
certain weeks you'll see more than others, so that's okay. I'm sure we'll
Right.
get back to normal. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
I'm
saw
assuming.
most people supporting the expansion of these rights.
Right. So yeah, most people about 86% supported it. And the one comment came in, they gave a pretty long a breakdown of the proposal and saying that they do support the proposal. They said the idea of this proposal sounds good. Um, and so they questioned a few things in there
Right.
about they don't understand how or why it deals with reproductive freedom through non-discrimination / equal rights. They don't understand why that's shoveled in under there. Um, and so, but overall, they did support these issues.
Yeah, it is kind of a funny way to bolster women's rights when it comes to
Yeah.
reproduction, abortion, right? Because you're saying you can't discriminate against someone on that basis. Okay, but does that really help them with their reproductive rights? I mean, I guess maybe in a sense of someone not wanting to give you a job or going at you in some way because you had an abortion, because you want an
Why
abortion.
would they even know? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
It is a little weird that that's kind of put in there. Although I
right,
guess the idea is, let's just try to improve women's rights across the board, right? This is one
right,
iteration of it, but you also want to do more to make sure you have access to reproductive health care, et cetera. So
right,
it is interesting. And we talked about this last week. It does have a lot in it, right? It
right,
says gender identity and gender expression as separate rights that are added in there. Age, we talked about the controversies perhaps surrounding that, right?
right, right.
But
Uh,
is this going to lead to lawsuits saying that there can no longer be men's rooms and ladies' rooms?
right,
Possibly.
right.
So,
Well, they ended off their comment with, I hope these issues are actually dealt with in a reasonable way, which I think we all share that same sentiment.
right, right. Andre, have you read up on this one at all?
What is this?
This is the amendment that we'll be voting on to the New York State Constitution in November when we vote, which would,
It's the Equal Rights Amendment.
Yeah,
yes,
It actually got on the ballot. Great.
got on the
yes,
ballot. Yeah. Well, it went to court, and I guess it was struck down initially, and then a higher court put it back on.
right, yeah, yeah.
I'm for it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we're for it as well. We were just looking last week, I guess, at potential unintended consequences given how expansive the language of it is. And
right,
could lead to some weird outcomes.
And Mike
But
thinks
again,
old
you're
people
never
should
going to
be
know that
discriminated
until you
against.
see how courts start to interpret it, and then we can have a
Well, but
conversation.
you still, I think, are mindful of the language and what you put
Right.
in.
Oh, no. I mean, look, no, I'm not saying that you can't be mindful of the language, but again,
Yeah.
you're saying that you're worried about how this could potentially be interpreted, and then I'm saying that you were not going to know until we see how,
Mhm.
after it actually comes to pass, how it is interpreted by the courts here in New York State. Which
Right.
I would like to remind you that our appeals and Supreme Courts are still are fairly center right in this state.
Yeah. And Mike thinks that old people should be discriminated against. Like,
No, we were
I think
talking about certain aspects of age discrimination that may have perverse results, perhaps.
yeah. How old is the dog there?
she just turned 4.
Oh, okay. She doesn't have to worry about it. Well, I guess she could there could be age discrimination. She could be too young. You're not old enough to drink yet. So,
Right, but that was one that we were talking about. Now, I don't think that would stand, but this kind of idea, right? If you can't discriminate on the basis of age, in theory, can you tell young people that they can't drink or can't work in a bar or any of these things?
right. Yeah. How would that play? It sounds like a stretch and probably is, but could someone twist that to consent laws?
Yes. I mean, anything can be twisted, right? And I
Right.
think we talked about this last week that just because you have a prohibition on these types of discrimination, it doesn't make it absolute, right? There's
Right,
still
right, right.
factors that can overcome that. And so that's why Andre says you have to see how it ends up being interpreted, you know.
Sure. The challenges and whatnot that
Right,
come up on it. But
right.
Look,
so
I
that
mean,
was, yeah. Go ahead.
nowadays we do have judges like Eileen Cannon who, you know, like to set very peculiar precedent. And so, we have to be cautious, of course, but at the same time, we will not know until it actually any of these things appear before the court.
Yeah. So it looks like we're headed that way because I do think it will probably pass. So we'll have to see on that. And before we wrap up here, we want to put out a poll for next week. And so I guess briefly we should discuss the New York City councilwoman who allegedly bit a police chief at a homeless shelter protest in Brooklyn. The bite marks are there for all to see. So this is not
That was a serious bite. That was not a play.
right.
That was
Clearly,
that was a bite.
clearly the arm was bitten and bitten hard, right? We can see that from the photographic evidence. And I don't think this councilwoman is denying that she did it, but she is saying that I guess it was justified. I think that's
Has she commented on it? I didn't see her comment on it. From what I read, that there was no comment yet from her offices or anything.
okay. I thought that I had read that she said that it was justified. I know she gave a speech after this happened, and she did not mention the incident at all, but she talked about how the NYPD had mistreated her community, and she was greeted as a hero in her district.
Yeah,
I heard from someone whom I happen to know personally who said he was there. He says he didn't see the biting happen, but he saw the bite marks. But he claims that this all happened because the councilwoman was trying to protect an 81 or 82-year-old constituent from the police at the time. So I think that's kind of what they're saying, that this was done in defense of the woman, that it was done to prevent further harm from happening, right? But as you mentioned, a very harsh, very hard bite, and it wasn't a gnaw. I mean, it was
no, it was, yeah, you could tell, like looking at that bite, her top teeth, whoever did the bite, their top teeth went in. They went into the skin. The bottom row didn't puncture anything. That top teeth, so they got some strong upper, so.
Well, what we want to know from people is, do we believe that this councilwoman should be losing her seat? Now, when I first heard about this happening, a councilwoman bites a police chief, I thought,
did I send it to you? I think I
have.
Yeah, I
so
sent
I
it.
saw the headline. It reminded me of the councilwoman who brought a gun to the protest. I was like, is that her? Is she up to it again?
And by the way, all fairly dissimilar neighborhoods, right? Because
right. Also in Brooklyn, the more conservative areas, right?
Yeah. Because what's it called? The woman who bit the no, I'm sorry, the woman who brought the gun was from the like Sheepshead Bay,
It was like Irma.
Manhattan, Manhattan Beach part and stuff, where you
Right.
do have a lot of conservative Russians who live there and stuff. And she's a Republican, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
He's a Republican.
And
This
then-
this
And,
representative
and
was
she's a conservative Democrat here in Bensonhurst. This is
Right.
a different
Susan
that
Zhuang.
represent Susan Zhuang,
It's a
who
new
represents well, right, but it represents Bay Ridge and Bensonhurst, right?
I don't know if it goes down to Bay Ridge, but it gets close to it. It
But
neighbors
again,
Justin Brennan's
but
district.
again, you have a lot of conservative Russians, and you also have now a large influx of Chinese American voters who are also a bit center right, which
Right.
it does make sense for that district. Sure.
Right, and this was a protest against a planned homeless shelter, I guess.
I'm
And the
aware.
city is saying that that area doesn't have any shelters, and so they got to do their fair share. But they, of course, are protesting. If you do look at the video, it does look
It's,
like
Asian
Asian Americans who are there.
It's a 6,000 square foot shelter in Gravesend, right?
I think
All men's shelter.
home, and it's supposed to home about 150 people, and the opposition was saying that there was no community input at all in this decision. It was just
And to be fair, they're probably correct on that, right? Because that has been the city's MO. So it's not like they don't have any grievances here either. But
the bite that should not happen. I mean, that shouldn't happen in civil society, I would say, especially not from a representative. Like
the bite.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Well,
bite.
when we put out the poll about the woman who brought the gun, I think most respondents said that she should lose her seat on the city council. I think that was
Right.
that one. So I want to ask a similar question here. Now, my understanding is if you're convicted of a felony, you automatically lose your seat. But we don't know if she will be convicted of a felony. She was charged, right? I think resisting arrest and I think assaulting the officer. So she apparently will face these charges and may be expelled automatically. Or perhaps if she's not convicted of a felony, the city council will have to decide whether to punish her, right? They can strip her maybe of committee assignments or take away discretionary funding or what have you. That would be something for the city
So
council.
look, I think, in my opinion, I think she has a right to fight this in court and let that play out because, again, she can make the case for civil disobedience and that this is part of that. I do not think you should be biting police officers while you protest because it usually leads to severe jail time, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like the right way to go about things, but that's just me.
no.
Okay, so the poll question of the week is, should the New York City councilwoman who allegedly bit a police chief lose her seat if convicted?
Was he a police chief?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
By the way, think about if this was anyone but a sitting councilwoman.
Right.
Well, they did arrest her on the spot.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm just saying that, like, imagine it was a protester against, the war in Gaza. If this was a protester anywhere else in the city and stuff, you know what I mean? For you're the head of BLM Tokyo and stuff, right? Like, if this was a BLM New
Oh, I
York,
would have been shot. I would have been shot.
you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy, crazy, crazy stuff.
From the video that I watched, I saw a couple of videos, and there was the one that where they were asking for the permit, and the guys, the police officer was talking to, I guess, the guy that was with her, and he's like, and they're like, we're asking for the permit. The public has a right to see the permit, and the guy's like, I don't even know who you are. But she never mentioned, well, you know who I am, or do you know who I am, or anything like that. I think that would have been kind of pertinent. Listen, I'm the councilwoman here. I'd like to see the permit. But it was just, she was just screaming. And it's like, did the police know who they were arresting?
I'm the councilwoman and I'm here to bite you.
I mean, to be fair, the conversation kind of ends after you take a bite, right? Like, it's.
I'm talking about before that. Like, I didn't see anything like, it just seemed like she was just screaming at before all of the biting happened, and she just screaming instead of like trying to deal with it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I don't know anything about her background in terms of like, is she a known like activist and stuff?
So my understanding is that she's a longtime legislative staffer. I believe she worked in Albany, so she might have been doing some activism in the community, but I'm not sure if that's what she was primarily known for. I think she kind of came in through the political channels in the legislature.
So is that what they're teaching up there in Albany? Like, is that
Well,
did you take the
listen,
fighting class in Albany, Mike, when you were up there?
no, but I was going to say that if you watch the Republican convention, it looked like a lot of the people there had been in fights with Mike Tyson, but maybe they were in fights with Susan Duong.
It's yeah, it looked well that looked like the convention in Idiocracy is what it looked like. But
Well,
surely you've seen the movie Idiocracy.
I have not.
You should watch Idiocracy. I
You
know
should
Andre's seen it.
you should watch Idiocracy. You should very much indeed watch Idiocracy. It has prophesied Trump's ascendance quite well back in what, like 2005, 2006.
Yeah, it
So,
was something back then. And
it's
yeah,
it's Mike Judge, the guy that created Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill.
yeah.
Oh, is it a cartoon?
No,
No. It's a kind of a comedy. It's a comedy movie, but the premise is a guy from modern day somehow ended up in the future, and in the future, people like MAGA people have taken over, and you know,
drinking water is Gatorade.
yeah, and it's just that type of mentality is what's leading. Yeah, you should watch Idiocracy.
You should, yeah.
All right. Well, it'll be on my list. And with that said, it's time to go to the bottom line. So, Andre, let's try to keep it clean here. What is the bottom line?
You should watch Idiocracy and make a contribution on Act Blue to Kamala Harris's election campaign. Let's go.
Okay. Short and sweet. I like it. And Jake, where can people find us?
They can find us on YouTube and Instagram at Nuance Show, and everywhere podcasts are available. Just subscribe, and it will automatically be pushed to your device when a new episode goes up.
And also support your local Democrats.
Yes.
Yes.
This all sounds good. As always, we've got work to do. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Good night.